Well, hello guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Bruno Bartolota. I'm a French photographer and I live in the wonderful city of Panama in Central America. I do recommend you guys to come and visit. It's a vibrant and spectacular city. And chances are that if you ever come to Panama, you may not want to leave, as it just happened to me. So, today, we're going to work on this image that you can see here. I'm going to do two videos. This is my second YouTube video. Um, I had some remarks on the first one that maybe it was a bit too long, so I'm going to split this tutorial in two parts. On the first part, we're going to work in Lightroom and we're going to basically straighten and color correct the entire image. And in the second video tutorial I'm going to do on this image, we're going to create the reflections and the final adjustments to the picture. So this is a picture of Panama City skyline. This is Avenida Balboa, which is the coastline of Panama, which is a hotspot right now in Panama. For the little story, this coastline has been built over the sea. Like 15 years ago, it did not exist. It was plain sea. And 16 years ago, you had not one skyscraper. And like Panama City is in 16 years since the canal has been given back to the Panamanians, we have hundreds of skyscrapers that just popped out like mushrooms within the entire city. So this boardwalk is a hotspot for Panamanian. It's a place where you have a lot of sports facilities. You can practice basketball, tennis, football, ping pong. You have some equipment to do some gym. People come and running. So it's a big hangout place for Panamanian during the weekend. Well, this being said, let's jump into this image. So, as you're going to see, the result out of camera was pretty different. Here's what the picture looked like. This is one of my early pictures. I really didn't know how to get it very right into camera. So you have several issues on this picture. First of all, the color is not good. Okay, highlights are blown out. There's major verticals are not straight because I used a wide angle lens. So basically, there's a lot of corrections. So what we're going to do right now in this far part is that we're going to straighten this image, and we're going to color correct it to plug in the final correct colors. So if some of you have seen my first video, you know that I come from HDR shooting. So every time I shoot my pictures, I do 3 bracketed exposures. So here's a normal exposure. Here's the underexposed, -2, and here's the +2 image, so the overexposed one. For night shots today, I just do one because it's not that useful to get as much color information, as much information. Here you have it all, you know. I may do sometimes lower exposure. If I have some bright elements like here, it can help me in the blending process in Photoshop to tone it down a little bit. But usually one exposure is enough. In this case, I'm still going to merge all of these into one HDR file made in Lightroom. It's a new possibility that opened last year in the 2014 release of Lightroom, that you could do an HDR merge into one single shot. And the good thing with Lightroom is that you get all the information within one raw file, which is a DNG file, which is the Adobe RAW format, so you can still benefit from the power of the RAW editor, the full power of the RAW editor that is Lightroom. which you would not benefit if it was a JPEG or a TIFF file or some other non-RAW formats. So to do so, I already did it. No, so here's the merge HDR file. But if you want to do it in Lightroom, it takes a little time. So I did it previously. What you do is that you select all three of them. You select to do so. You select the first one. So let's unselect it. Select the first one. I press Shift, and I select the last one. So it all selects what's in between. I right click, I do photo merge and HDR, and then you have a panel opening with little options there, and you click on merge and you get that file. Okay, so here's the file and edit it. So there's not much difference, to be honest, how it looks, but now it needs to be worked out. So let's go into it. So for those who are not familiar with Lightrooms, most of the magic of Lightrooms happens here, okay? Those are the basic general adjustments. Those adjustments affect the entire image. And then if you want to work specific part of the image, like we're going to work right now, you go into those different tools that allows you to do specific selections on your image to work specific areas. The way we're gonna work is that we're gonna generally color correct the image. Then we're gonna do a radial filter on the sky to change the color of the sky, and we're gonna do a radial filter here to tone down this highlight. So first, let's do the general adjustments. So I'm gonna bring down the highlights. Too much. Bring up the shadows. Okay. I'm going to do my white points. So my white points is extreme white parts of the image. To do so, I press the Alt or Option key, and when I press with my mouse on the little lever, I get a black screen, and if you can see, you also have those little dots. Those little dots now are areas of the photo that are totally burnt, so there's no more detail into it. So usually what I would do, I would back up until I get none of these, but in this image it doesn't make much sense. I need the light to be bright, so I'm going to accept some of those. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing with black points. So I press also the Alt or Option key, and when I press my mouse I get a white screen. Here, when I move it down, all my black areas with no more detail appear. So with blacks, I don't have that much problem to have plain black because it adds a little contrast, no? So here is the first result. Now we're gonna go here in the color temperature sliders. Basically, this is what you would have in camera as the white balance, what we call white balance, which is the color temperature of your image. Maybe you have all of these settings you can set manually or put it on auto, and your camera does the decision. In that case, I did put it on auto, but it just came out as the wrong color, so I need to put a little more blue into it, so I'm gonna have to do it manually. At this point, I'd like to emphasize the fact that all of this work if you shoot in RAW files. And if you shoot in JPEG, here the color correction tools are just going to be very, very, very small. You're not going to be able to really color correct your image properly as if you had shot in RAW. So I encourage you guys that shoot in JPEG to move into RAW and to get into Lightroom, because it's not a very difficult tool to master, and it's a really powerful tool to start getting down the creative path, no? So here's the color temperature. So I'm going to put some blue here. So here how it works. On the left you add some blue, and on the right you add some yellow in the colors. So blue is cold tones, and yellow is warm tones. Okay, and here you can tint the image
more magenta, more green. So you need to, I'm not going to touch the tint in this image. I think there's a little magenta that's been added, and I think it's fine. I'm just going to touch the overall color temperature, and I'm going to try to get some of the details, warmer colors here, and yeah, it's still a blue overall effect. So let me see how I can do that. Oof. I think here it's right. Let's see how it does. Now I'm going to boost the vibrancy just to make the color pop a little bit, quite significantly, because the entire image relies on color, on the contrast of warmer tones within the buildings and blue tones within the sky and reflections. So what I want to do is to get those warmer tones to pop out. Maybe I'm going to use a little saturation too. So I usually don't use saturation because it gets very ridiculous very quickly. Look at that, okay? Vibrance is a more subtle way to handle color. But in this case, we're not on a realistic image anyway, so maybe I'm going to just push it a little bit, no? I'm going to add some clarity. Clarity is sort of a macro contrast that really pops out highlights or texture in other pictures. It needs to be, it's a powerful tool, needs to be used usually with a lot of cautious, no? Okay, then I'm going to jump into the last section of the developed module of Lightroom, and this is camera calibration. So what camera calibration here does is that it reinterprets the colors differently. This, you only have these options if you shoot in RAW. Those are very powerful features for color correction. I'm going to show you, I'm going to leave it on Adobe standard for this image, but I'm just going to show you how it works. You have several settings here. Those change depending on the type of equipment you have. I'm on the Sony camera A7R, so I guess that those will differ if you shoot on Nikon or Canon. So here, for example, camera landscape really warms up the whole thing. Camera standard also, and here's Adobe standard. So I'm going to leave it on Adobe standard. I just wanted to show you what the power of those specific adjustments. Here you have you can fine-tune your colors within those sliders. So this is RGB environment, which is the environment of Adobe. So to do a little very basic course, so every color you have is a combination of red, green, and blue. So depending of the amount of blue you have in the color, the green and red, you get a different hue to your image. Those sliders affect the quantity of blue you have in every color, of green you have in every color, and red you have in every color. So you can either change the red parts to different parts, or you can saturate or unsaturate it. It's very powerful, so it's going to be used. I usually use the blue primary because when I increase the saturation, what you're going to see is that it pops out all the colors. Look at that, it's very exaggerated. Without it, unsaturates it, oversaturates it. So maybe I'm going to go for a little saturation here. Okay, let me work a little bit on my contrasts. See what clarity does. It's an iterative process, no? Maybe a little bit more of my shadows. Okay, well, we can still fine-tune this later on. Okay, so now what we want to do is that we want to straighten the image.
So to do so, there's a panel in Adobe Lightroom. I'm going to remove chromatic aberration and enable profile correction. That just corrects the software identifies what lens I had, and it corrects the defaults of the lens, so the vignetting and the distortion that are native to every lens. So I'm gonna go to straighten it here, to transform panel. So I'm gonna use the guided tool. This is a relatively new feature in the last Adobe CC 2015 release. So chances are you may not have it on yours. So I'm going to show you how to do it in the original manner, but I'm going to do it through, I'm going to show you guided way, and then we're going to finish with guided way. So there's several ways to skin this. You can try the automatic tool and press vertical here. And as you see, it has straightened more or less in the center, but it has actually tilted the buildings in the other way around, so I don't like that. So I'm going to go off. The other way to do it traditionally is to go on your vertical slider here, and then you start pushing it. In this case left, sometimes it's right, until your buildings are vertical. I think they are here. So that's another way to do it. Then you crop and you get your image. I'm not going to do it like that. I'm going to do guided. So the way guided works is that I'm going to tell Adobe Lightroom which lines should normally be straight. So I'm going to put a marker here, and I'm going to place another one on this line. I'm trying to put it on the extremes, okay, so that it straightens it. And boom. It looks a little bit tilted. Let's see. Yeah. Now we're there. So here's the image straightened. Let's see. If I touch the exposure slider. No. Okay. Maybe it's a little too black. Okay, now we're gonna do the specific adjustments. So we're gonna tone this down because it's too shiny. So for the little story, I mean, they placed a Panasonic sign here. I don't know if you can read Panasonic on this one, very hardly. And it's become the nightmare of every photographer now in Panama. So, well, unfortunately, if we do night skyline of Balboa Avenue in Panama now, we have this to deal with. It's very hard to deal with. So to tone it down, I'm going to use a radial filter. So what this does, it's a tool that allows me to make a circular selection and to fine-tune all the elements within the selection. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this area, which is very shiny, and I'm going to bring down the highlights, not to have it as shiny as it is today. So I place it in the center, and I do a circular shape here. I'm going to try to do it a little big. Okay, so the way this works, once you have it placed on, all the objects you start doing, you have all your normal basic adjustments that you can apply within the selection. So just for you to show, I'm going to increase the exposure. It's ridiculous, but just to show you how it works. Right now, as you can see, I have my circular tool. Okay, the effect is full strength outside. I have a feather here, so it's totally out of this circular area. Then it's a gradient until the border, and then it's full strength outside. Just to see the feather, if I feather it completely or not, you can see the effect that's not affecting inside and that affecting outside. So in order to have it reverse, I need to check this box here, inverse mark. So now mask. So now the effect is inside here and not outside. So it's very strong. So I need to feather it a lot. So I usually put feather on 100%.
So basically this is not the effect we want. We don't want to increase those lights, we want to turn them down. So I'm going to reset this. I'm going to go to highlights and see how it works. And now I have a good selection. So if you want to see before, after, before, after. So this allowed me to make a circular selection. So this is good also if you want to emphasize some points from focus point in your image. So you just add a little exposure and with the radial filter, and it catches the eyes without noticing it too much within the image, no? So here we're done with the radial filter. So now I want to get the blue sky back. Okay, this is a bit too dark. So I'm going to use for that the graduated filter. So I click here for graduated filter, and then I'm going to press the shift key, because if I don't, this is going to go and it's hard to get it straight. So what I want to do is to press the shift key so that it doesn't move, whatever happens, and it goes straight down because my horizon is quite leveled. So basically, to show you what this does, I'm going to press O. When you press O, it shows you exactly the areas in red that are affected, that are masked by the effect. So if you can see here, what's happening is that the upper part of the image until that line is going to be 100% effect. Then it's going to apply a gradient from this line to this bottom line here. So the effect is going to be strong here until no effect here. Okay, I'm going to lift it up a little bit because I want less effect on the building. I try to get the warmer tones, so I don't want it to be affected by the blue that we're going to add into the image. I'm going to press O, and I'm going to move the color temperature to get some blue back. I'm going to darken it by lowering down my shadows to get deep blue here. So it's quite a change, huh? This is how it was before and now after. What we have here is that since we have a gradient, the lower part here is much less affected. So I want to paint back blue into that sky here. So to do that within the gradient filter, last year Lightroom added a brush to fine-tune all of those effects. So here are my brush characteristics. So small size, but the size I manage it with the mouse. Small feather to try to avoid affecting the building too much, and a flow. Flow is how many strokes to get the full effect, and density is how much of the effect you want in. So I'm gonna keep up this. I'm gonna put density to 100% because I want 100% of the effect, and the flow of 70%. In this case it's going to work, but usually I recommend you guys to use the brush at 70 and 70. Otherwise, when you stroke, you see them too much. So you want always your effects to be smooth and to be blended within your image. So try to, so automask usually it should detect borders, but in this time the contrast is not as good in the image, so I'm not sure it's going to work very well. So I just have to be careful here. So right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint it here. See? I'm going to paint it here. To get the same sky. See, here I can press erase, and I can erase the effect on those buildings, just to get too much of the blue and keep it on the warm tones.
So I'm painting here. It's not very funny. I'm not talking. I'm sorry, guys. It's a bit of the tedious part, no? Okay. Okay. It's not perfect, but okay. What if I lighten it a little bit? Okay, guys. Perfect. So I think we're there. There's something wrong with this image. Okay. Maybe it's a bit saturated. Let me see. It's a creative part, so yeah, I think I'm not going to do that. So, I think we have our last image done. And that ends our first part of this tutorial. On the next tutorial, I'm gonna bring this image into Photoshop and we're gonna create the reflections within Photoshop. Thank you for watching. See you on part 2.